Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get started here. So this morning we're going to be making the Storybook Pocket Pillow that you see here on your screen. This design is part of the April Kimberbell Dealer Design Exclusives that is available from our store. Here you can either join for the year and you'll get 13 designs, or you can purchase a la carte. And you know, if the project that month doesn't appeal to you, you don't have to purchase. We are going to be working with the hoop size that you can embroider a 5x7 hoop into. Okay, and for the Berninas, that is a large oval. You can use a larger hoop like the midi hoop if you want, but the large oval is just fine. Okay. So that will be what you're going to do. We're going to need also a tearaway stabilizer. We're going to use medium weight tearaway. Today you could use ultra clean and tear, but you may need 2 layers, but medium weight is the stabilizer of choice. And 1 layer should be just fine for what we're doing today, because the design isn't heavily dense in terms of lots of filled in stitches. It's just mostly the satin stitches that are going to cover the edge of our appliques. We have a variety of thread colors that we're going to be using today as well. So let's take a look at a little bit of prep work that you want to complete before we get started with our design. So you're going to get your piece of medium weight tearaway. You want to make sure it's larger than your hoop size. Do not put it in the hoop. We are going to hoop our background fabric with it. Okay. You want to apply the Fusible Woven backing. Okay, that's your interfacing, which is the OESD Fusible Woven lining. You could also use Kimberbell's Fusible Woven backing and or Pellon SF101. You're going to pretty much apply that to the wrong side of every piece of cotton fabric that you cut for this project. So the front of the pocket, the lining of the pocket, all your cotton applique pieces, do not apply it to the felt or the leather, but to all of the other pieces. Okay. And then once you have that applique Fusible Woven backing applied to your pocket front fabric, we're going to find the center. Okay. And we're going to take your, I think it's a 13 by 21 inch rectangle here. We're going to take and we're going to mark center both horizontally and vertically. You can use a water soluble marker, or you can use a heat erasable or air erasable marker, completely your choice. Okay, so that you can see I have my horizontal and vertical. The next step in the instructions is going to tell you to mark a line 1 inch above the center mark, okay, and you're going to call that line A. Okay, so just so you can see, okay, so we have your horizontal and vertical center marked, and then we're going to draw a horizontal line 1 inch above that one, and then we're just going to mark it with A. This is the line that we're going to put into the center of our hoop. Okay, we're not actually going to be aligning the fabric center to the center, but actually aligning line A and the vertical center into the center of the hoop. You would also want to go ahead and have the design open on your machine if you would like as well. Okay, so I have my fabric laid out so that it is 21 inches wide and it is 13 inches tall. This is how it is going to go into the hoop. It is going to be wider than it is taller. Okay. So I Kimberbell tells you to tape your stabilizer here at the top and the bottom because it doesn't always fit. May not be tall enough to fill the hoop. I don't find with the Bernina I really need to tape, but I did give it a little spray of 505 just so that this fabric sticks to the stabilizer, so that when I go to pick everything up here, it all kind of stays together for me. I'm going to take my template, okay, my hoop template. Now, for those of you that are have pinpoint placement, you could just put this in the hoop and then work through pinpointing this project to this position. I'm not going to work through pinpoint today, but for those of you that have Berninas with the pinpoint, you could just put this in the hoop and then pinpoint your center and your vertical and horizontals. Okay, I'm going to show the traditional plastic template. Plastic template in the hoop. In my center marking of my template that shows me center of hoop, I'm going to line that up so that the intersection of line A is in the center of my hoop. Okay, I'm going to loosen my hoop screw as loose as I can get it without losing the nut, and then I'm going to pick all of this up and set it in my hoop. Start at the top. Hopefully you have more. I'm working in a small space here with the module on the machine today. Work up at the top of the hoop. Work towards where the screw is screwed into the hoop, and then we can make adjustments. I'm a little crooked, so I'm going to pop that out. Make an adjustment. Let's do it this way. There we go. Now we're lined up. Now I have it in the hoop with my red line marked, and then I'm going to slide my hoop to the side and I'm going to tighten my hoop. Okay, I'm using my HoopKey, my hoop screw here, so that I can tighten this without having to use my fingers. I'm going to tighten it up, and then, like always, I like to push my inner ring just past the outer ring to just tighten that up a little bit. So again, I'm just going to push that a little bit past where it comes through. For my Berninas, that's just going to lift up so that this edge of the hoop doesn't rub on your stainless steel free arms. Okay, and then once we have that in the hoop, we're going to move this over to the machine. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to cover a few things today. Exciting. So I'm going to come on over. I'm going to put this on the machine. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to verify that center of my design is lined up to the center of my marking here. So I'm going to that, and I want to make sure that my camera is out of the way. So that's my center, not quite exact, but I'm going to move it until it is. Okay. All right, I'm good. And I'll show you in just a moment what I did to mark that, to get that aligned on the Bernina. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so just so that you know what I just did to get things aligned into the center and verify. If you have a Bernina, and I'm sure most of you, if you don't have a Bernina, have settings very, very similar to this. In the Bernina, if we go to the eye, that's your edit, opens up your edit function. In your checkbox, this function right here, this target or this bullseye, is going to take you to the design center, and it will move your hoop and everything. So my hoop moved. If my needle did not go down into the marking that I have marked on my hoop, I can use my width knob to move the design left and right, and I can use my length knob to move the design up and down. Allows me to verify and get that exactly centered. Now, as a reminder, after you've done your moving left and right and all that stuff, before you hit go, verify that you do not have that red ring of death around your hoop, okay? If you have a red ring around your hoop, that means some part of the embroidery is not in the hoop, okay? And so we either need to rehoop our project, okay, or make an adjustment to our positioning. The next thing that we're going to do before we hit go is, we had some people, but I don't want the name Olivia on my pillow because it shows what's in the picture. In this design here, this is an empty book where they put Olivia at. So you do have the ability to customize this book with a lettering of your choice, okay? So I'm going to show you on this user interface. This is the user interface that I'm using now, is pretty much the same for all 5, 7, and 8 series currently on the market. For my previous my 780s or my 750s, my 730s, you all still have the ability to do this. It's just maybe in a little bit different place. So I'm going to add a design to this. If you want to put a name on that book, you do not need to. I'm going to hit the plus sign here on the screen because that's going to allow me to add a design to this project. I'm then going to travel back out to the previous folders, that are on the machine. I'm going to choose ABCs, and then I'm going to choose a horizontal font that is in a font that I like. Okay, so I'm going to choose this one. That's going to open up a keyboard, and then you can type either uppercase or lowercase letters for whatever you would like. So I'm going to put my last name here, and then I'm going to hit the check mark. Oops, that did not open my design. Let's go do this again. Plus, oops, I keep hitting the wrong button. Machine ABCs. Now I can type. Now it adds it to my books. Obviously, way too big to fit inside that book. So we can hit the eye. You can then resize this design. The lettering needs to be below a 1/2 inch in height, honestly, in order to fit well inside this book. So that I would probably be okay with. I could play with my spacing in my letters as well. So your letter spacing for my plus machines, you're going to touch your eye, the arced ABC, and then your width knob will adjust the spacing between your letters if they're too close. Okay, that's just one way to add that. This is the last thing that we'll stitch, and that's fine. That's where we actually want it to be in the design, to be the very last thing. For those of you that own embroidery software, okay, give me 1 second. We're gonna So for those of you that may own embroidery software, you can open the design inside of embroidery software before you ever put it to the machine. I'm going to touch, this is Bernina embroidery software that I'm using. I'm going to touch the letter A on my keyboard to open up my alphabet box. I can then choose a font. By using embroidery software, you're not limited to the design or the fonts that are on your machine already. You actually have a lot more options inside of embroidery software. You can do this whether you're in Bernina embroidery software or Bernina Toolbox. You can also add this design with Bernina Toolbox. You would need the lettering and the editing portion of Toolbox. So I'm going to choose my font. Okay, and if you look here on the Bernina embroidery software, they give you a suggestion of that this font shouldn't be any smaller than 0.39 of an inch and no larger than 0.71. So this is perfect because I want my lettering to be just about a ½ inch in height. I'm going to choose OK, and then I'm going to come and click on my book. I can now left click and drag this design exactly where I want. If I need it to be smaller, I can shrink it and then realign it to where I want. Okay. Now, once I have this positioned where I want it to be, I would then export this to the machine and then pick up embroidery. Okay, because again, we added this here in our color film. It's the very last function that we will embroider. Okay, and it will be its own color stop so that you can have the font of your choice. Okay. Yeah, it would take me, if I was doing this, it would take me hours and hours to find just the right font because I love embroidery fonts. Okay, so now we are going to start embroidering. Okay. We're going to thread the machine with a neutral color. We're going to work through applying all of the fabrics before we do any sort of cover stitching. And so we will be able to work through all of this. We're going to, first up is going to be the cream colored fabric that's in your kit. This is called Fabric 1 on your instructions. These are the pages for all of this. So we're going to run a placement line. We're then going to place our fabric right side up. We're going to then run the tack down line, and then we're going to trim around each of those individual shapes as close to the stitching line as we can. Okay, so I have neutral colored thread already in my machine. My design is up, and we're going to hit go. Maybe if I had threaded the machine, it would go. All right, let me get it threaded. Now we're moving. One more cover, or one more set of pages, and then we're going to lay our fabric right side up, completely covering all of those markings. Okay. And remember, all your fabric, all your applique fabrics have the fusible woven lining on the back side, mostly one, to add a little bit of stability, and two, to prevent the other colors from shadowing through the underside. Okay, so my fabric is right side up, and we're going to now tack this fabric in place. If you have any questions, if you're working along with me, I would love to know, or if you're just watching and will work along with the video later. If you have any questions about really anything, I'll gladly answer while the machine is running. You've got my complete and undivided attention. Now you could do this with smaller pieces of fabric. If you didn't have a big piece and you wanted to cover just, you had a rectangle to do this area, you had a rectangle to do here, and then you had another one over here, I would just suggest that you tape your fabrics down in place so that as your machine moves from one location to the other, it doesn't pick up, or the foot doesn't get caught underneath of that fabric and mess you up. Okay, now that we are tacked in place, we're going to trim. Just going to come straight down. May have to switch to some smaller scissors to get between the books. Okay. So you can see that all the pages are now trimmed around close to the stitching line. We are next going to return this to the machine, and we are going to run the page detail. Now I'm going to use the same creamy color that I'm tacking things down with, but you can change to a darker thread color or a darker tan if you would like. I'm using color number 781 right now in Isacord. If you are interested in the color choices that I am using today. And as I change thread colors, I will let you know which one that I'm doing. So if you wanted to make note, you could. I do believe we have just a few kits remaining up online for this project. If you are interested in making it like it is in the image. I am using, the question is, what needle am I using? I am using a 7511 sharp embroidery needle. Before I started today, I cleaned and oiled my machine, put in a brand new needle. Design takes probably a little over an hour to embroider. Okay. This is Isacord color 781 is what I currently have in the machine. And I'm going to leave this color in to do all my tack downs. Everything is going to get a satin stitch on top of it. Okay. Next up is going to be, we're going to run the placement line. We're going to place the smaller piece of felt down in place. This is the 2 by 6. So actually it could be the larger piece of felt. 1 second. Yeah, so it's the 2 by 6 piece. The larger piece of pink felt that you're going to be using. We're going to take placement line, place your felt covering all of that placement line, tack it down and trim. There is no right or wrong side to your felt. And again, I'm leaving in the same thread color. Pink felt going right side up. Well, there is no right or wrong to the felt. tack it in place. And now we trim. Thread tail right there. Okay. There we have all trimmed. Next step is we're going to repeat this process. This is the same steps that we're going to be doing every time. You want to make sure that when you return your item to the machine that this piece of fabric does not get rolled underneath. We don't want to accidentally embroider into it. So the next step, we're going to embroider a placement line. We're then going to place the coral or orange fabric right side up, and then we're going to tack it in place and trim. Still using the cream colored thread. And this fabric has the Fusible Woven on the back side. Now, if pattern bothers you, this does go on a diagonal, so you may want to think about how you put this piece of fabric there, okay? So if you fold back kind of along that line, you can see where it is, but if it doesn't bother you, just throw that piece of fabric down, covering all of that placement line. And then we're going to trim. Okay. It's beginning to look like a book. Next up, we're going to run the placement line for the Dream book spine, which is a 2 by 4.5 piece of fabric. Okay, it's the, nope, not that color, this color fabric, sorry, more of the turquoise, not the dark blue. Okay. We're going to run the placement line. We're going to place this right side up, tack it down, and trim. Still staying in the same color. This is the Dream book spine, which is a 2 by 4.5 rectangle of fabric. Fabric right side up It does have fusible on the back side. Tack it in place. Scissors. Okay. Our next step is to place the dream book cover, which is the 1.5 by 5 rectangle of the darker blue fabric. Okay. So you can see, we're going to run placement line. We're going to place that piece of fabric right side up, sorry. That piece of fabric does have a piece of fusible on the wrong side of it. And I'm still staying in that cream colored thread. This book is way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Okay. Fabric right side up. Tack it down, and then we're going to trim it. Camera's in the way. Sorry. Now we're going to trim. There it goes. Our next step is going to use the lighter teal-y aqua fabric. We're going to run the placement line, place our fabric right side up, tack it down, and then trim. Okay. All right. Still using the cream. So I see a question, the background fabric, the main piece of the pillow, or the quilted piece that is for sale in the kit? So this is the half-yard piece that's in the kit, okay? The pillow, oops. The actual finished pillow is we don't use that until all the embroidery is done. We're actually going to make the pocket out of this. But this background piece we do have in yardage, as well as additional pillows available too. Okay, if that answers your question. The fabric the pillow is out of is nothing that I have here, because those pillows come already made and assembled. Okay. Trim. Repeat with pink felt. So we're going to put the hoop back on the machine. We're going to run placement line, and then we're going to use the other piece of pink felt that you have. That is the 1.5 by 5 rectangle. There is nothing fused to the back of your pink felt. And then we're going to trim. Lots of repetition here at the beginning. And then once we have one more book to applique. Once we get that down, we're going to start filling in and covering up all the raw edges. Okay. So we're going to trim the felt, and then we're going to return the hoop back to the machine, and we're going to stitch our placement line. For our last piece, it is going to be the blue leather piece that you have. That should be the last piece you have here. Okay. And then we're going to tack it down, and then we're going to carefully trim it as well. Okay, I'm going to trim this leather, and then we're going to start working on some of the filling in and decorating. So I had a question about scissors. I jump between a duckbill and a pair of small curved scissors. Just depends upon what I can find and where. It's completely up to you, whatever's comfortable. I can trim fairly well with both. I usually leave this pair for smaller areas that I can't get to with my duckbills, or it's whatever pair of scissors I haven't hidden or walked away from my cutting area with. I may want to use the smaller ones to do a little bit more little trimming, that type of thing. But when I have long straightaways, I prefer my duckbills. Okay. All right. So the next color stops that we're going to work through are really going to be your thread choices. It's going to be up to you as to what you want to use. We're going to start changing threads. We shouldn't have to take the hoop off the machine anymore. Okay. So the first up here is going to be the word inspire. You can stitch this in whatever thread color you like. I'm going to stitch this in, for me, 4620 is the thread color that I have chosen to coordinate with that darker blue teal, but it's your choice. In the book, in here, it looks more like navy blue in the images, but it's completely your choice as to what you want to do. So we're going to do inspire. After the word inspire is finished, the next step is some decoration that is done on the book cover, some spine detail. That's going to be a little swirl and the little straight lines at the end. So again, this is Isacord color 4620. Once this color is finished, I am going to switch back to color 781 to stitch my spine detail. Going back to 781, or whatever color you would like to use to do that little spine detail. It's a little swirl. I'll show it to you once it stitches here. Today's a good day to stay inside and embroider. It's raining great. Rain and gray outside. Right. The next thread color is going to stitch a little bit of detail onto the pink felt, and then the color after that is going to be the color of your satin stitch on your book that we're currently embroidering. Okay, so my detail on this color, go, one second, I have to, if you've not used a WonderGuard yet, I highly suggest retiring thread nets and replacing them with WonderGuards. So WonderGuard takes place of a thread net, designed to hold your thread around the spool, okay, and keep your thread nice and taut, pulling off your spool evenly, okay. What's nice that it is going to prevent your thread from drying out, from getting dust. It's going to hold your thread tail so you can store it if you don't want to have to constantly open and re-click your threads shut. And they don't stretch out, so as your spool gets thinner or emptier, you can, peel it off and retighten it, take it off and use it on another spool. Okay, so I highly suggest WonderGuards in place of thread nets. We finally have a product that I prefer more than a thread net. So we're going to color 1840 is where I'm going to now. So 1840 is going to do like less than a minute stitching. It's going to do this little heart up here on the book. You could make it the same color as what you plan to satin stitch around your book. I'm going to make it a little different, because I like to thread my machine. Yes, and the WonderGuards are in stock. Came yesterday afternoon, perfect timing. It was the first shipment. The first shipment went over the weekend for our birthday sale, and the replacement showed up. Now that that little tiny detail is finished, we're moving over to the satin stitching that's going to finish all the raw edges of this book. This first book, okay? I am using color 1430, okay, but it is your choice. It's your book. And I just unthreaded that. All right, there we go. My machine has decided it's done. Now my bobbin's decided it's done. See, it's not just you guys. It happens to me too. I know you guys enjoy seeing that. And my bobbin is just a neutral color bobbin thread. Nobody's gonna see it, so while that machine is running, let's take a look at the next few color stops so that we can go ahead and plan our thread colors. So next up, this is where we're right here at this book spine on gray 42. So in 45, step 45, we're gonna do a navy blue, which for me, I chose 3732. That's gonna stitch a little tiny satin stitch on each end, and then it's gonna do the word dream. Okay. Then after it stitches the word dream, I'm gonna go back to my cream colored thread. Okay. And it's gonna stitch these little dots, and then it's gonna embellish the word dream. Then we're going to switch over to the satin stitch, which is going to be color 4620. And embroider that section of the book. Moving on to the empty book, we're going to use Isacord color 4250, and that's going to stitch the cover stitch on the outside edge of that book, and then I'm going to go back to my 781 and stitch the spine detail. And then we're going to work on the word believe and a little bit of cover stitching that's going to happen on that last book right there, the pink book, that I am going to, I think I'm going to do it in, haven't decided if I'm going to leave it the same color as the book we're doing now, or if I will stitch it in the 1840 that I use to do this little decorative bit. I haven't decided yet, because the word believe is going to get embellished with cream colored thread. Okay. And some decoration. And then we're going to shift over to the word discover, the spine detail, which I will do in the 4250, which is the light teal. And then I will do the satin stitching of that book cover in 3732. And then the little star detail, I'll probably go back to the same light color, but you could make it cream if you wanted. And then you have the option of putting in that personalized name. If you want my design, I'm going to leave a name off of this one. Okay. And then you'll be ready to take it out of the hoop and tear off the excess stabilizer from the back. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the machine here. Yes, 1 second. I'll read them all as soon as I change this next thread color. I'll read all the thread colors out for you. All right, let me get this threaded and started. So I'm changing over to color 3732. Okay, so no. All right, color number 3732, 781, 4620, 4250, 1840, and 1430 are the color numbers that I have used so far. Now, while the machine is running here for a few minutes, I thought I would go over a little bit more prep work that we're going to need when we're ready to start assembling the pillow. Okay, so again, fusible backing goes on to your handle piece, your accent for your pocket, and for the pocket lining. Okay, you're going to put fusible backing on the wrong side of all of those. Then we're going to start making our handle. So our handle, we're going to fold in half, wrong sides together, lengthwise, and give it a good press. Then we're going to open that up. We're going to fold the raw edges into the middle towards that center crease line, press it well, and then fold it in half. Standard handle assembly, okay? Then we're going to top stitch at on each side. Typically I will start top stitching on the open edge, and then that way that holds it shut, and then we top stitch opposite of that. And I did match my color to my fabric handle when I did that to both the top and bobbin of the machine. Okay. As an option, once your handle is top stitched, you can add a decorative stitch down the middle of the handle. Okay. So it's completely up to you. You could leave it alone or pop it in the middle. And I'll show you a really cute stitch that I did, and I'll walk you through how to do it on the machine as well. And then we can start looking at a couple of things. We're not going to worry about right now arranging the pocket fabric, but that accent piece is going to go between the two pieces of pocket. Okay, so you have the one where the embroidery is at, and then you have the other where your where it's blank. And then we'll come back and we're going to add that as well in a few moments. But while your machine is running and you want to go ahead and make your handle, you can, and get your pocket accent folded and set to the side. Okay. So my word dream is finished now. I'm going to change back over to 781 because it's going to stitch some decorative stitching through the middle of my word dream and put a couple of little embellishments in the spine of the book as well. Well, that's very nice of you. Okay. Next up is going to be the color that you want to use to finish all of the edges of that book. I am going back to color 4620. Will be the color that I use to satin stitch this book. No, I'm not using a magnetic hoop yet. I have not tested it. Maybe this week I'll get to it. This is one place where I would be concerned about using a magnetic hoop. This is what I want to test because I'm afraid that a magnetic hoop is not going to be able to hold this tight enough to keep this from wanting to shrink and cause wrinkles. So that's what I want to test. I think it would be fine. It'd probably be fine for quilting, and which is what most people do use the magnetic hoop for, but I want to make sure that I like it before I recommend it, because it is a big investment. Now after this book is satin stitched here, we're going to move to satin stitching the book above it, and that is going to be color 4250. I wasn't going to put a name on it, but I'm thinking it's going to look kind of weird, so I'm going to wait till it finishes embroidering, and then I may go back and add a word there. Not so much a name, but a word. So what word would you suggest to go along with dream, inspire, believe, and discover? What's a good word to put there instead? Maybe imagine. Oh, we already have an I though. Oh, but there's two D's. So two I's would be okay. Decisions. You're too much. Typical boy answer. Ooh, support. Ooh, create. That's a good one. And appropriate. That's a good one. Maybe create. Then that's a totally different letter. Good job. If you're stitching along with me, how you doing? If you're just watching, that's fine too. All right, I'm switching colors. And we're going to stitch that book covering. Ooh, wonder, that's a good word too. I don't know, I'm kind of liking wonder now. I don't know, determined may be too long for this book, but we can try. No problem. That's good. Watching and taking notes is good. This video does live on forever on YouTube, so even if you can't read your notes or misplace them when you go to start stitching, you can come back and watch this again. while that's stitching, let me show you a few other things. So the quilted pillow covers have been with us for a few months. We have two different shapes. We have squares and we have rectangles. So we have 18-inch squares, and that's what we're working with today. The 18-inch squares come in either the mist color that has the chevron quilting in it, or it comes in the sand color that's in your project with the cathedral window or orange peel stitching. Then we have two lumbar, so two 12 by 18s. So we have a navy blue 12 by 18 that is cross-hatched or plaid quilted. And then we have a few of the Patriot Blue, which was a special color last year for fill in the blank. So we still have a few of the Patriot Blue lumbar pillows available as well. So what's nice about these pillows is they're already quilted and the invisible zipper is already put in them for you. So you could just do your embroidery and then sew up the sides, which is what we're going to do today. We do also have two matching pillow forms that match the size of this pillow as well. Okay, so 12 by 18 and 18-inch squares. We also have pillow forms for Kimberbell's other projects, her 5.5 by 9.5, her little bench buddy pillow. She has the 8-inch square pillow, and then we have the bench pillow, which is the 16 by 36 as well. Okay. Some of the collections that use the pillows, this was the first one. This is Emma's Collage Pillows. And this pillow, this collection was used or demonstrated on all of the different pillow, square and rectangle pillow projects. We have an Emma's Collage technique. You're going to learn that technique. Let's see, next month is May, so I think June, we're going to learn the technique of Emma's Collage pillows in that month on a dish towel. So this gives you a few ideas. The other place that used the quilted pillows was the curated collection Home for the Holidays. It's used on the pillow here in the upper corner that says Home for the Holidays. And then the rectangular lumbar pillow down here for All is Calm, All is Bright. The Fa La La pillow is actually made with velveteens. It's not a pillow form, so it's actual individual hoopings that are, kind of think of a tile scene that are then sewn together. So that's, here's some more examples. This design was in the chevron with the yellow flower, was in the Bella box. The Live Creatively Bella box as well. So if you have that Bella box, you have that design for you. Okay. Now, the other thing that we have is this month for our Kimberbell Dealer Design Exclusive, all the pillow forms are 20% off this month through the end of the month, okay? So if you want to make more or anything along that lines, they are 20% off both in-store and online as well. Okay. All right, switching over to the word believe, which I think I'm going to do it in, I'm going to do the word in 1430, the darker color. And then I'm going to outline it in the lighter pink because I don't want two books in the same color. Or lighter peach, I guess it more is. Come here. Okay. All right. We're going to do the word believe. And this little bit of shadowing that's going to happen in the corners, which I'm okay with being in the dark color. Give me 1 second. I'm going to fast forward here. Let's start here. I hit a button and hit the wrong button. So, wanted to go back to the beginning. We're back on track. Okay, I will go over that, Miss Indy. Not a problem. So let's look at that while the machine is running. So the question was, how did I find the spot where I needed to go back to? So when you're embroidering, so let me get to the word believe here. Okay. This function right here, this little S with the X inside of it, that's your broken thread. So I didn't have a broken thread, so it's not automatically going to open up for me. So when I wanted to, because the color stop jumped back to the beginning because I hit a button when I was trimming a thread. So it jumped back to the beginning. And so I just needed to get back here to the end of this E. So I stopped the machine. I hit this button. This is going to allow me to fast forward or back up. Your top knob is going to move you a single stitch at a time, and your bottom knob is going to move you hundreds of stitches at a time. So I knew that I needed to start fast because I needed to get through all of this top section and then all of the B and part of the E. So I'm going to turn my bottom knob, just like 1 or 2 clicks. You're going to see overall where it's at. So this crosshair is showing you exactly where your needle is at. Your hoop moved to that point. And over on the right, I have a zoomed in section. So I'm still on my B, so I'm going to use my stitch width knob now. I'm going to turn it clockwise so that I can go forward so you can watch your stitch count in my stitching. And it's going to work its way through the B as I just keep turning. Okay. I could probably go a little bit more. Okay, that's too far. So now I'm back over here at the beginning of my E, and I'm just going to hit this knob until my needle gets back to where I need it. So I know right now I had already stitched the center of my E, and then it travels back up to the top. It's going to stitch this portion. It comes down, it does the sign. I'm going to keep fast forwarding, and right at that point is where I would stop and hit start. And then it's going to pick up right where I need it. So it's just a matter of fine tuning with your width knob and your length knob and watching not only the screen, but watching where the hoop and the design move to as you are adjusting those functions. Okay. And that screen is the same one that pops up if you have a thread break or your bobbin runs out. When the machine stops to report that to you and you clear, you say, okay, thank you for letting me know, and you hit the check mark to show that, then you can, it opens up in that backup screen. Okay. All right, so my word believe is done. I'm going to accent the word believe in that cream color 781. Oh, come on, Jiminy Crickets. The next stop is going to do the detail stitching or the decorative stitching through the letters believe, and then a couple of little dots to the outside edge. while it's working on this cream colored stitching that you see here. Next is going to be the book satin stitch outline, and then we're going to move on to the last book. Which sashing, Miss Patsy? The blue color that's in your kit, you should have a, let me see if I can tell you how much it was. It should have been a 9 by 21 inch piece, considered like Caribbean Sea color. That's in your kit. That is the pocket handle and the accent on the pocket, as well as the dream book spine as well. Lots of little fussy stitching in this book, in this project. The one thing I do note and I do see is when I trimmed those original book edges, let's do this. So when I trimmed that original first step, the edges of the book are not, the pages of the book are not going to get satin stitched. So I probably would have trimmed those a little bit closer, especially the outside edges that I know were going to be left uncovered. Like this side gets covered, but this side doesn't. So I probably would make note of that and trim those outside edges definitely as close as you can to the stitching. Okay. I'll trim it up a little bit when I get it out of the hoop and I can fold my background back and try to trim up some of that so it doesn't keep fraying on me. I mean, it'll eventually stop fraying, but okay. I'm back to color 1840 to stitch the satin stitch of this book. It is really adorable, I will tell you that. Just make sure, so remember that the kit does not include the design. So if you don't have, if you're not part of the membership already and have the design, make sure that you also purchase the design. All right, finishing up that book. Moving on to our last book here. All right, I'm going to change over to Isacord 4250. That is the lighter aqua spa blue color. It's going to stitch the top book cover. It's going to be the book cover of this book. And then it's going to be the word discover as well. Almost done the embroidery. About 10 more minutes of embroidering. And then we're going to get to put the pillow together. While that's embroidering, I'm going to pull out my pillow. You can see here is the quilted pillow. It's already quilted for you. The edges are serged and the invisible zipper is already installed. So even if you weren't putting this, because this is being embroidered on a pocket piece that's being added to this, you could put that directly onto this pillow. Okay, you could embroider directly on here, if you would like. Be very careful putting your, don't do as I do. Be very careful putting your scissors in there when the machine is running, or your fingers. Almost there. A long project today. Thanks for your patience. Oh, Miss Patsy, my satin stitching on this last book is gonna be the dark blue. The 3732. Okay, trim these few little thread tails that I have here, and then I'm changing over to 3732 to run the last color of the satin stitching around the spine of this book. Oh, work with me here. All right. All right, 4 minutes and we'll have a finished, well, I'm gonna go back and add a word here. So now I have to figure out what color I want that word to be in. I'm thinking this dark blue, just because we don't have any other words that are mainly that dark blue. It's the underside of dream, but not really the main. But I'm wondering if that dark blue is going to be too bold for our project. Suggestions? Or do I pull in another color? Like I happen to have this 151, which is like this silvery neutral, that maybe I bring in and put there instead. I'm thinking that blue is going to be too dark. I think I'm liking that concrete, this concrete. This is 151. It's hard to see that color there. Here. It's like a silvery taupe. It's almost the color of this pillow. It's hard to see there, but yeah. I'm thinking we're going 151 for that word. And so this is perfect, you know, I don't want to leave it blank, or maybe, you know, you don't really want to offer, you want to do this for like maybe, you know, a new child or somebody you don't really know or things like that. This would be, you know, just filling that in with another generic word. I'm really liking wonder. Wonder or create are the two words, but I'm thinking wonder fits really well with discover, believe, dream, and inspire. I know Eric is going to like that one. And read, yes. I'm liking wonder. I don't know. I think I'm liking the W. Well, it's going to depend upon what fonts I have built into this machine, because I can't do it in my software and bring it over because I moved this design in order to get it to align and center. So I don't want to leave that design and come back to it because it won't be exactly centered here. So, all right. All right, that's done. We have one more color stop that's going to do these little tiny things. I'm going to go ahead and do that in that gray color, since that'll be the last color that I use. And I think it's not like it's satin stitching anything here, and then that way I think it'll look just like the cream for this little decorative stitch that's there. You can't even tell what color it is. Okay, now our embroidery is finished. Okay, except for my word. So I'm going to come back into the edit, I'm going to hit the plus sign and I'm going to go find a font that I like. I think this one will work. I'm going to type in the word Wonder. Okay. Gotta shrink it. Oops, gotta be shrunk more. All right. I think I got it positioned there. And now we're gonna fast forward back to the end. All right. Stick the word Wonder in here. Let's hope we make the right decision of word and thread color. I don't know, I made a pretty quick decision too on fonts, so we'll see if I made the right choice there as well. Now, once this finishes, we're going to take our project out of the hoop and we're going to remove the stabilizer from the back of our stitching from around the outside edge. I got to check the settings on this machine. I don't think it has the jump stitches down at a small number. I don't know, I'm kind of liking it. Just fits in that box too. Shrunk it just enough. This is the most juvenile looking font that we had on the machine. Yes, I can show you. I'll show you again, Miss Betty. Just 1 second. All right. Design is finished. Let's take a look. There it is. All done. So pretty. This is on an 8 series machine, okay? This, I'll tell you which font number it is in 1 second. Give me 1 second. The word wonder, I shrunk to 0.6 of an inch. And then it is on an 8 series machine, because that's what I'm embroidering on, a Bernina 880 Plus. It is number 32. It is Alphabet Rounded Sands is the font. Okay. All right. We're going to take our item out of the hoop. I'm going to get rid of my module because we're done embroidering. We're going to be moving over to sewing. So let's get me some more room here. Put that back in the drawer where it belongs. Pull this out. And then tear off the stabilizer. Just from around the edge. Don't need to sit and pick out anything from the inside. Not necessary for this project. And then you can go give it a press, okay, if you would like, okay. I did just save this design to my stick. So if my local gals, if you would like to swing by with a USB stick, I will save this design to the stick for you with the word wonder already set up as well. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me finish setting my machine back up for sewing. I'm going to lower it back down in the cabinet and put the tray table on. I'm going to change over to a 1/4 inch presser foot. Neutral sewing thread in my top and bobbin. Okay. 1/4 inch foot. I'm going to use my 97D and we're going to use a straight stitch. And I'm going to fix the camera. My freehand system back in because I can't stitch without it. Okay. All right, just have to change threads. So the question came up about how to change your jump stitch trim settings. So on my newer Berninas, we have the ability to set up our jump stitch settings, okay? So basically what we do is we have the ability to define how big the machine is going to trim. So if there is this distance between point A and point B is a certain distance, the machine is going to tie off, cut, and then jump to the next starting point, okay? But we have to tell it what size we want that to be. The default setting on the machine is going to be 6 millimeters, which is fine. It's about 1/4 of an inch, so it's not terribly large. But to change that setting, you come into the gears, and depending upon your machine, you may have to hit the home button first and then touch your gears. Once we touch the gears, you are in embroidery settings, and we are going to change an embroidery setting. So that means that we're going to touch the picture of the embroidery hoop, and we're going to be changing the cut settings. And then right down here at the bottom, that little number, 6 millimeters, is telling me that the jump stitch needs to be larger than 6 millimeters before the machine is going to automatically cut it for me. Okay, so we need to decrease that. You can't make it any bigger. 6 millimeters is the default, but taking it down to like 2 to 3 millimeters is good. It's gonna definitely, it may take you a little bit longer to embroider some things, because especially if you're doing lettering, because the machine is going to be tying and cutting in between every single letter. But if you don't want any jump stitches on that project, you're going to want to take that down to as small as you can. Okay. All right. Now, question is, what did I do with the other half of my project? There it is. All right. So once you make your adjustments, you can just hit the X in the corner. That will close it out, and then you can continue on with your embroidery. That setting will stay that way until the machine is, you go back in and make another change. Okay? So it's not something that you have to do every single time. All right. We're going to take now and start assembling our front pocket. So we have our pocket fabric that has our embroidery on it, right side up on the left-hand side, and we have our accent piece, which is the 2.5 by 21 inch piece of fabric at right side up in the middle, and then we have our lining piece right side up. Okay, we're going to sandwich this piece between these two pieces with a 1/4 inch seam. So I've already sewn it to this one. Okay, so I put right sides together, I sewed a 1/4 inch, I pressed that seam open, and now I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to put all of this right sides together, I'm going to match my top edge here, and we're going to sew this together with a 1/4 inch seam. Okay. Back stitching at the beginning and the end. Okay. Oh my goodness. So funny, you should see the studio after I finish doing a live or videotaping something. This place is a mess. Okay. Get my thread here. We're going to sew 1/4 inch. Matching all those edges. Now I'm pressing these seams open. You don't have to, it's your choice, but we are going to fold this in half here in a minute. I just think it lays a little flatter. It's not bulky or anything like that, but pressing them open is a complete option. She doesn't really tell you in the instructions what to do with it, but if I look at the picture in the pattern, it looks like they are, I'll show you. It looks a little pressed open right there. So I went ahead and pressed my seam open. So you can see my embroidery piece, my lining piece, my accent is in the middle. I'm going to go to the iron here and I'm going to press this open. Then we're going to fold this in half. We're going to match the bottom edge. Okay, here in 1 minute. We're going to fold it in half, match the bottom edge, and we're going to cut 1 inch off, okay, from each side. We need this to be 19 inches, okay? Right now it's 21, or should be 21 if we measure, yep, 21. So I'm going to come and I'm going to cut 1 inch off to make this 19 inches in width, okay? So just so you can see, while we do that, if I have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to walk out here to the iron. Unfortunately, I can't take you to the iron with me, but maybe one day we'll have more than one. We'll have cameras situated all over the store, so you can just walk around with me, and I'll just change my position, and the camera will already be there. While I'm here at the ironing board, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to iron the front of my project. Be very careful. Do not put the iron on top of the blue leather, okay? Because you don't want to touch the leather with an iron, the embroidery leather. You're not going to be happy if you do, okay? I'm going to refold this. Now after I've ironed it, I have refolded it right sides together so that the bottom edge of my pocket front and my pocket lining are together. And we're going to trim 1 inch off each side. Okay. So you can see here, I have to find a rotary cutter. So I have my pocket. We are folded in half. Now what I'm going to do is, okay, 19 in half is 9.5, right? Am I right there? I have my marking that I had originally folded my iron in half, and I'm going to line that up with 9.5. I want to make sure that if for some reason this may not be completely centered, or I've got, like for example, I've got excess fabric, like one of my pieces must have been longer than the other. So I want to make sure that I stay centered here. So I'm going to trim this guy over here. Here, let me raise you up a little bit. There you go. Now you can see. So by putting that at 9.5, I'm going to trim my right hand edge off at 19. Okay. And this edge is hanging over 0. Okay. So I'm going to put my rotary cutter and my ruler here at the 19 on my mark, on my mat, and I'm going to cut. I'm then going to carefully rotate all of this. The newly trimmed edge is now going to go over here at the 0. I'm going to make sure that my band here is at the bottom is straight. And now I can cut this one off at 19. Okay. That way, if while I embroidered, if anything, shifted or shrank or anything along that lines, I have an equal amount that I'm cutting and still keeping this guy in center. Okay. All right. Now, we are going to change the depth of this pocket. Okay. We're going to measure 12.5 inches from the top. Okay. So I'm going to get a 12.5 inch square because that's going to give me the right width for me to be able to use. And I don't really have to measure too much. Okay. My 12.5 inch square. I'm going to measure from the top and down. Okay. So 12.5 is going that you can see. This is 12.5. Okay. And she says pockets should measure 12 inches in length. She's saying from here down should be about 12 inches in length. Mine's a little bit longer, the pocket, and I'm okay with that. I'm measuring from my fold down 12.5. Okay. So as long as from the top down, from the fold of your accent down to the bottom of your pocket is 12.5 inches, you're just fine. Okay. All right. Now that I'm marked at 12.5, now I'm going to cut at 12.5. Okay? I don't want to, I always like to mark things first and verify that, read through my instructions again, make sure I measured right, and then I'm going to trim that off. Now we're going to sew this together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, we have to leave it folded right sides together because we're going to stitch this and we're going to flip it right side out. We have to finish the bottom of the pocket because we can't, there's no seam for us to finish it in. If we were to finish it in a seam, then the zipper would be at the top of the pillow, and we don't want that. We want to keep the bottom of the pillow where the bottom of the zipper is. Okay, so we're going to come to the machine here, and I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch. I'm going to leave my 1/4 inch foot on. We have a 1/2 inch marking on my stitch plate that I'm just going to follow. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. We're going to turn this pocket right side out. I highly suggest that you press this seam open that we are currently sewing before you turn it right side out. If you press this seam open, it is going to fold in half much nicer when you flip this right side out. You're going to be able to keep the front on the front and the back on the back, and you won't really see that particular hem. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the iron. I'm going to kind of fold it like this, and I'm going to press this seam open. And then once I have this seam pressed open, I'm going to turn this right side out and press it again, making sure everything is nice and flat, but do not touch the iron to the leather. So make sure that you use a pressing cloth before you put your iron on it. Okay? I don't want you to get this far in your project and ruin your Discover book. Okay? So I'm going to walk out to the iron here. I'm going to press that and give it some steam. I'm just pressing the seam, and I'm not pressing any creases into the other fabric because I don't want my creases there. And then I'm going to turn this right side out. And I'm going to press from the back side or the lining side of the pocket so that I don't accidentally touch my Discover book leather. I'm going to give it a good press, some steam. All right, come back and show you what it looks like. Okay. All right, so again, if you press that seam open, when you fold this in half, it's going to give you a much cleaner and nicer fold here at the bottom than trying to sit there and figure out which direction to put the bulk, and things just don't ever lay as flat. So press that bottom seam open, then turn your project right side out, and you should have a pocket that measures 12 by 19. Okay, perfect. All right. Now we have our pillow that we're gonna break out here. We're gonna place our pillow right side up, and we want the zipper on the left. Okay, so let me get this set up for you. So right side up, zipper pull is here on the left. I am going to mark a line 1 inch above that zipper. Okay, so I'm going to pull my ruler. I'm going to line it up with that bottom seam of the pillow, and I'm going to mark a line. Okay, this is where the bottom of our pocket is going to go. Okay. I'm going to take my pocket. I'm going to put it right side down towards my pillow. Okay, right side is down. I'm looking at the lining portion. I am lining up the bottom of my pocket with that line I just marked. I've also made sure that I am positioned left to right. And I'm going to pin this in place. And then we're going to go sew this at 1/4 inch from the folded edge of the pocket. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take this to the machine, and we're going to sew this. So I'm going to put the direction step up on screen so that you can see that for the moment. So again, we've marked 1 inch up from the bottom of the zipper with the zipper pull on the left hand side. I've marked 1 inch up with a water soluble or heat erasable marker. I'm using heat. And then I've positioned my pocket with my embroidery right side down. So I'm looking at the lining side of my pocket when I am stitching. I'm lining that folded edge, the bottom seam up with the marked line, and then I am sewing 1/4 inch from the edge, okay, of that pocket, all the way across. You may want to shorten your stitch length a little here, especially if you know, children like to put lots of stuff in pockets. And so if you just want to reinforce your pocket, you can shorten up that stitch length a little, make it a little bit stronger. We're going to sew all the way to the outside end. And I'm going to back stitch there as well. Okay. All right. We're now going to flip our pocket right side up, and we're going to align the side edges and then stitch down at 1/4 inch down the side to hold it in place. Okay, I'm actually going, I think I want to go iron this up, but I'll just go with it for the moment. Okay. And so I'm gonna pull that up. I can't say that your pillow may not be exactly straight on the edges, okay? So just do your best to get it lined up. I'm gonna line up this edge here, and I can tell on this edge that my, if I flip it over, you can see that I'm not exactly straight. The pillow itself is not exactly straight, It's actually a little bit bigger, but, oh, I may be able to do it that way. If I lay it down and fold it out from the wrong side, it may be easier to be able to see. So I'm actually going to sew mine from this side so that I can make sure that if I'm having to make a change, because if I sewed 1/4 of an inch from the other side, I don't know, it's hard for you to see, I'd probably miss the pillow. Okay. So I'm going to sew from the pillow, the lining side of the pillow, I'm just going to use the side seam as my true marker, and then I could trim any excess up. It's just from the natural shape of the pillow and all of that, you'll be just fine. So I'm going to come over to the machine here, and again, I'm going to line everything up, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch down the edge. You don't want to be bigger than 1/4 because we don't want this seam to really technically be seen once we sew the pillow together. Okay. I'm going to sew to the bottom. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to repeat this on the other side of the pillow. I'm really just using this to hold this in place so that when we go to stitch the pillow up and shut, our pocket stays where we want it. Okay, so you could just baste this stitch, the side seams in place. They don't have to be stitched because we are going to stitch them officially into the seam when we sew the pillow together. Okay. All right. We're going to fold our pillow right sides together at the top. So just so you know, this is your pillow. So here's my front now. This is the top of my pillow because that's where my pocket is at. We're trying to find the placement for our handle. So I'm folding that in half, and I'm going to put a pin there at the midpoint so that I know where my handle needs to go. And then I'm going to show you what I did to the handle. You're going to love it. Miss Jackie, you'll know why I didn't do the word read in a minute. Okay, so I have the top center of my pillow, and we're going to unfold it, and we're going to measure 2.5 inches from each side of that pin and make a mark. So I'm lining up my pin here on the mat, and I'm just going to go 2.5 over and then 2.5 over. This is going to be the location of our handle. Okay, I'm going to show you what to do with the handle, and then I'm going to show you what I did. Okay, we're going to put the handle on our project. Okay, and basically we are flipping this so that the center, one end of the handle at the mark matching raw edge to the zipper. Okay, and then the raw edge over here. Okay, and I'm going to do that so that the edge of my handle is at that mark. Okay, and then the edge of this handle is at this mark. All right, and then we're going to sew that in place. Okay, so I would go ahead and just put a couple of stitches there to keep that held for you so that it stays where we want it, so that when we go to assemble this pillow, we'll be good to go. All right, so let me talk about what I did to this handle. Do you see that? There's my decorative stitch. So I'm going to show you on Bernina's how to use the combi mode function on your sewing machine. So if you are looking at your decorative stitches, okay, Let me get our machine interface here. I'm going to tell it what stitch I have on. So combi mode, and all Berninas have combi mode, at least all the Berninas that embroider have combi mode. How to access it may be a little different, but if you get out your owner's manual or you use the tutorials that are built into your machine, you will be able to do this, okay? I also have my Mastery series is up on YouTube. The Mastery series on YouTube, and I believe it's Sewing Mastery 2 that covers combi mode as well. I'm using a fine tip friction marker. Okay, so in the current user interface of machines, this button right down here at the bottom is what turns combi mode on and off. You'll notice that if you come into combi mode, you lose your width, your length, and your stitch disappears. I'm going to go over and choose my alphabets. I'm going to find the alphabet that I want to use for this project, which was this one. I'm going to type in the word that I want. There is lowercase as well here if you wanted lowercase letters. If you make a mistake, you can just touch and swipe right, and the stitch that you accidentally selected will disappear. So I'm just going to type in what I use, so the word read, and then I put a heart after that. And my heart comes from my decorative stitch menu. It should be in your 400 menu no matter what machine you're on, and I'm going to choose a heart. So this is my stitch. It's going to stitch the word read and then stitch the heart. And then it's going to start again with the word read and then do a heart. And it's going to continue to repeat that over and over and over again down through the middle of my handle. Okay? So if you just want to pick a stitch, you can just go and pick the heart, and it's just going to completely continue stitching heart after heart after heart. But if you want to personalize it, maybe this is where you put the child's name, okay? And you can add the child's name at the handle versus making it part of the book. This is how you do it. So the handle was made, we folded the rectangle in half, opened it up, folded raw edges into the center, and then I top stitched down both sides, and then I stitched down the middle of my handle with my decorative stitch. Okay? Questions about combi mode? I'm sure there's going to be some, especially as you start to use it. But again, my YouTube Mastery series is up here on YouTube, so that you can see, okay, what it looks like. So I'm going to come over to the machine real fast. I'm just going to run a straight stitch about 1/8 of an inch through each end of the handle. Well, maybe if, I swear machines don't want to cooperate with me when I'm live. Okay, 1/8 of an inch. I've got the outside edge of my handle lined up with my mark, and I'm just going to stitch 1/8 just to hold that handle in place so that I don't have to worry about pins and clips. I can also verify that my handle is not twisted and is correct before I get it assembled in our project. Okay. So, there's my handle. I have it so that you can read the word read and it's not backwards. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited. I figured everybody was going to, I taught lots of things today. We've learned a lot of things with combi mode and editing, all sorts of stuff. Now that your handle is attached, we're going to unzip the zipper, okay? Pull it about halfway open because that's how we're going to turn our pillow right side out. All right, so let me cut this thread. We're going to fold our pillow right sides together. Okay. And we're going to sew. Okay, so we have our pillow folded right sides together. We're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, and we're going to stop stitching a 1/2 inch from the zipper teeth. Okay, we don't want to sew over the zippers. It's not gonna make a pretty bottom to your pillow. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this in half, and I'm gonna use some clips. Now we are gonna use, like I said, a 1/2 inch seam, so I'm probably gonna change from my 1/4 inch foot out to my 1D or my 1C on my Bernina, just because it's easier to keep the 1/2 inch there. Then it just keeps more fabric underneath of the foot versus having half of it hang out. Go across the top and then down the other side. Be sure to stop a 1/2 inch away from the teeth and a 1/2 inch away from the top corners as to where you're going to pivot. All right. Now, all right. Let's change the foot on the machine. So I'm going to go from my 37 to my 1D. I'm going to start stitching, okay, a 1/2 inch away from that zipper. Now you can mark it if you would like, so you can pull out your ruler and you can mark a 1/2 inch. So if I want to come a 1/2 inch down, right about where that seam allowance is at, I don't know if it's hard to see, but pretty much that's a 1/2 inch. So right where that seam allowance folds over is where you're going to start stitching at a 1/2 inch. Okay. Now I'm going to back stitch. I am also using a smaller stitch length for assembling this as well, just because, you know, we just want to make sure it stays together. I'm going to stitch down. I'm going to stop 1/2 inch from the corner. So if you want to mark your 1/2 inch so you know where to stop so that I can pivot. I am going to do a little back stitch at that corner. So I can pivot. Stitch across the top of the pillow. Making sure that when you're doing this, your handle is inside your pillow. Our handle, we should not be able to see our handle on this step. I am going to back stitch over top of that handle to reinforce that, because again, you know, children like to put lots of things in pockets, and you don't want your handle to start coming out of your project because they've put, you know, 40 pounds in it. So I'm going to go all the way back across the project, across the handle, and then to the other corner. Stop. I'm going to mark my 1/2 inch. Do a little back stitch there, and I'm going to pivot. Stitch down this last side, making sure again that I stop a 1/2 inch from the zipper. biggest thing is it's pretty much sew up to the zipper tape. Don't sew across the zipper teeth. Okay, otherwise you're not going to get a pretty project. Now, once your pillow is sewn, we're going to turn it right side out through the hole, well, through the zipper in the bottom of our project. Okay, so let me get this here. I'm going to open it up the rest of the way. Reach in and grab my handle. This is a perfect place to use the OESD point and presses. Okay, so remember your point and presses are, you could totally use a triple stitch for this, Miss Patsy, yes. So your OESD point and press, the bigger end is perfect for poking out those corners. You could clip those corners as well if you want. I'm gonna kind of leave mine just to reinforce that corner, but you could clip the excess off or grade your corners. Maybe we'll grade the corner. Let's grade this corner and see. Okay. So grading the corner is trimming out and coming closer into the corner. That's going to get rid of some of that seam allowance. Let's see if that corner turns prettier. Oh yeah, that feels better. I think I'm going to go and fix the other one. So let's undo this one. And so again, I'm going to grade the corner. I don't want to cut my stitching. I'm just going to start out and trim diagonally across, and then start at this point and trim out. So we're just trimming the excess so that when we flip this right side out, not only are we trying to cram all of this, but we're also trying to cram all of the side into that corner. You could, if you wanted, you could take this back over to a serger if you wanted to reseal those seams, but you know what? It's the top inside corner of this pillow. I'm okay with it. This bottom corner, you really don't want to grade or touch clipping that zipper, so you just want to leave that the way that it is. Because we don't sew it, it actually turns the corner pretty well without a problem. Okay. Get my zipper to start here. Couple of times zipping and unzipping, it'll get easier. There it is. Okay. There is our pillow. Okay. This project uses the 18-inch pillow form from Kimberbell. So I have one here. I'll show you what it looks like. One second. There we go. All right. Here he is. There's your 18-inch pillow insert. It is shrink wrapped down so that it is nice and not overly fluffy. But as soon as we cut this, it's gonna start expanding. Okay, and then you can put your pillow inside of your pillow cover. All right. Oops. There it is. So cute. Perfect little project. We have our pocket. It's a nice deep pocket. Remember, it's a 12.5-inch deep pocket, so it is going to fit a good sized book, especially, you know, like toddler books, that type of thing, fit in there as well. Any questions? Because that is our project. Let me pull my chair up here. I hope that that you learned something today, something new. We covered a lot of things. We talked about combi mode to customize your handles. We talked about customizing the font or the word inside of the machine using the designs that come in the machine, as well as using embroidery software to do that as well. Next month, we are going to be doing chenille. So this is the little pot holder project that we will have for you in, what's next month? May. In May, it will come in 3 sizes for your project as well. So that is what we have for you today. I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me for so long today. We look forward to seeing all of your projects, so be sure to take a moment and share them on social media with us. I love seeing you guys finishing things. And if you want to see this one up close and personal, it'll be here in the store, hanging out on the counter for you to take a look at. Remember that to subscribe, like, follow us on all the social medias and here on YouTube. And also be sure to remember that if you want to make more of these, all of the Kimberbell pillow blanks are on discount this month, 20% off, both online and in store. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all soon. Thank you, everybody.